This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're now being recorded, so I guess we will start the meeting here. Officially have a roll call. I guess we have Maureen, Dick, Margaret, and Maureen on the line, so I think we're good to go. We'll move to just approval of the minutes from last month. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at them. And have any motion to approve?
Motion made.
I second. I
Okay.
second.
Any comments, questions? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'll communications and announcements. Just want to welcome. I guess we have a few guests here this evening, so welcome. It's good to have some additional people on the line. So hopefully, if you want to introduce yourselves, and if you're with somebody, an organization or anything else, you can tell us. If not, just so I guess we'll go ahead. On the line, we have Joan
Bowley.
Joan Bowley, okay. And we also have on the telephone line is that Kay Warren.
Hey, Warren. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then we also have Gina Burnham, correct?
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, welcome everybody. Anybody have any other communications or announcements? I do have some, but I think they kind of tie in with some of our agenda items. So anyone else have any announcements or anything they'd like to say at this point?
Yeah. Mike,
Are you going to hear public, Mike?
Who's that?
Mike, this is Joan. Are you going to hear from the public now, or are you going to wait?
We do have input for the public at item number 6, if you'd like to wait for then. Or,
okay.
Yeah, Mike, I would
Okay.
propose that we move the input from the public to the further up in the agenda.
Okay, so moved, and okay, we'll do number 6 now. Input from the public. So would somebody like to go ahead with Joan? Did you have something you want to say?
Yes, I do. Okay.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, guys. I went online and I viewed your your virtual meeting for January 3rd. And I was disturbed by the way there were some ambiguous innuendos and derogatory remarks made pertaining to the Ashford Historical Society. And 2 of your members, mainly Maureen and Dick, made remarks that were very unprofessional and incorrect. And names were purposely not used at your meeting. And you're an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen, correct?
Yes,
the Ashford Historical Society is a nonprofit organization. It's not a town committee. But all this conversation, I believe, was related to the Tremco House project at the January 3rd meeting. And this project was given to your committee by the Board of Selectmen as part of your mission to advise and provide recommendations to them regarding its use. Also, it seemed to see if it was also to see if it fit into any objectives contained in the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development, which in your meeting you referred to POCD, which needs to be updated every 5 years. And it's just a reminder that on January 27th, 2016, your committee referred this back to the Board of Selectmen as you did not have any further ideas for the future use of it, meaning the Tremco House. The fact is that the future use of the Tremco House has already been designated in the matching grant the town applied for to rehabilitate the exterior of the Tremco House in 2014. It's a town-owned building project, and the Board of Selectmen are in charge. This project should probably never have been sent to your committee in 2017, since it was already established in 2014 what the use was going to be. I think you need to keep up with all the meeting minutes just to make sure everything is in line and that you have the correct facts. And a couple other things. What the Ashford Historical Society is doing should not be a mission of your committee's concerns pertaining to how it is managed. These are the things you mentioned in your meeting on January 3rd. How it is managed, our meetings, about our archives, about obligations to filing documents, being a 503c organization, and several other remarks. The Ashford Historical Society has been working with the Board of Selectmen over the years, and sometimes there are breakdowns in communications, but loyal members of the Historical Society are so dedicated to the saving of our history, making it visible, transparent, and available to all the citizens of Ashford via a town museum and tourist information center. Last but not least, I want to say the Ashford Historical Society is not defunct. That was mentioned at your meeting also. The variants of the COVID virus are still affecting people, and we need to always be cautious. Isn't that why every town committee meeting is done virtually and people are asked to wear masks and stay 6 feet from each other? In our town office buildings, the library, the senior center, and the school. Hopefully we can at least all get back to some normality soon, and we can continue with our activities. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, Mike, let me, since my name was mentioned, I don't have the.
I think this is input for the public. We can talk.
It's from the public camp.
I think it's important to listen to the public and let them have their say at this point. This isn't going to be a debate per se. This is let's just let them have their input. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate that.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending, and thank you for any clarification that you've provided. So thank you. So is there anyone else on the from the public that would like to provide some input?
Yes, this is Gina Burnham. I would also like to make some input.
Sure. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so my name was mentioned at your January 3rd meeting as well. So my name is Gina Burnham, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Ashford School. There seems to be a lot of conjecturing done at your last meeting, and so I just wanted to set the record straight on a few things and introduce myself since I did come up. There were some specific comments that were also very concerning to me. I won't go into all of them because in this new age that we live in, where everybody can go on and see the meeting for themselves, they can watch and make their own decisions about it. But one of the specific things that I wanted to bring up was that it was mentioned that I was the vice president of the Historical Society because they didn't want to give me too much power too soon. And that to me seems like the stuff of small town gossip and not appropriate for a public meeting. That seems like something you might say candidly to someone. But this is a recorded and public forum. And so I take issue with that, just to be frank, and mostly because it's not true. And I would love to talk to anyone who contacts me. It was said a few times that people have reached out to the Historical Society and not been, that their calls have not been returned. I can only speak for myself, but no one has contacted me. I know Maureen reached out to my husband today, so now I have your number, Maureen, so I will call you back, but as a mom of 2 kids, I had, drum lessons to get to and dinner to make this afternoon. I wasn't able to do a quick turnaround time on that call. But I did want to come and just give some of the information that was misconstrued, and I'd like to say the part that is true that involves me. So as I told you, I'm a 5th grade teacher, and that's actually how I became involved with the Historical Society to begin with. The 5th grade curriculum has to do with the Revolutionary War, and our school, Ashford School, has embraced what's called a project-based learning initiative. And this is a learning model where teachers have the task of helping students to become engaged in a real world project that is meaningful to them, because that is where the best learning takes place, when the kids are invested in what they're learning about. And so in 2018, my grade level team and I were brainstorming how we could engage the kids in a real way with Revolutionary War history, because as you can imagine, that's a real challenge in this electronic world that we're living in, and how to make that history come alive for them. And so I had a brief kind of awareness of Thomas Knowlton, and I wanted to know more and to spark some interest with the kids. So as my grade level team and I were planning, we came across the Ashford Historical Society's website, and that began the journey that I'm on now. I reached out to Joan, who immediately returned my call, and we talked, and from then on, she was willing to meet with me in person, to find out what my curricular goals were, to fill in all the pieces of Ashford history that went along with that. And she just really came alongside of us, her and Kay and Barbara Metzak. They came into my classroom and taught a lesson to the students about Revolutionary War history in Ashford, and the kids became really excited, which was the whole entire point of reaching out to her. And they rightfully so said, why doesn't anybody talk about this history anymore? How come we didn't know this, or our parents don't know this? And so in that vein, they had to decide on a project that they were going to do. The best project-based learning involves the community. That's the point of it. So they dreamed up Revolutionary War History Day, which was a day where they could educate the town on Revolutionary War History Day and engage people of all ages. And that's just what they did. We had an amazingly successful first Revolutionary War History Day. It was at the town hall. Every child had a booth of some sort. They had picked one area that was of particular interest to them, perhaps weapons, famous people, food, whatever the case might have been, whatever they were interested in. They created a booth, they had games, they wanted all of their proceeds to go to the Historical Society to further community engagement in Ashford with Ashford history. And I bring this all up, I know it's long-winded, but I feel like it's important because some of the misconceptions that were brought up at your meeting were that we need to engage the school and we need vision, and where are the people with this vision? And the kids definitely have the vision. I have the vision. We have the school engagement. We've had it for several years. Before I encountered Joan, I hadn't even realized that she had already existing partnerships in classes in our school. So this is work that has been ongoing and will be ongoing. And I feel like there's a little bit of reinventing the wheel happening here. So we actually had a second Revolutionary History War Day because it was so successful in 2018. We did it again in 2019. We would have done it in 2020 and 2021 had the pandemic not shut the school down. We were ready to do that. We had partnered with some other members of the Historical Society who were going to bring in some Revolutionary War reenactment folks to Ashford. We were in the planning phases of that right when the pandemic hit. And so, it's unfortunate that we've had to take a little reprieve, but it's something that I'm committed to and will continue to do with the kids once we have kind of returned back to normal. I think it's also important to note that there's many surrounding towns who have museums, and we don't. And that was one of the things that gave the kids their visions. We looked at places like the Mansfield Historical Society, where they have an office and museum in the old town hall building on 195. We looked at places like Wellington's Historical Society office and town museum that's on the Tavern on Route 74. The Eastford Historical Society has the Florence Warren Latham Museum on John Perry Road. And the students had a vision for Ashford to have a museum of its own. When I started working with Joan, I learned that the Tremco house had been rehabilitated or the exterior had been rehabilitated as a part of that grant in 2014. And she had told me that the conditions of the grant were that the interior was rehabilitated for a museum and tourist information center, which met my goal and my vision. So of course I partnered up and wanted to help with that. And I still am focused on that, and I'm interested in pursuing it. With all due respect, I understand that everybody has their own projects that are their pet projects or their interests. I know Maureen is fascinated with history, and other people have their own things that they're interested in. And if you don't think it's possible, or you are not interested in this particular project, to be fully honest with you, I just don't think it's appropriate to say there's no way in hell that this is ever going to happen on a public meeting. And so I'm sorry to not mince words on that, but that's where I'm at. The parents of my students became very excited about the possibility of a museum. I did not reach out to the Ashford Business Association, but they saw my things in the Ashford Citizen that I was posting in there alongside with the Historical Society, trying to raise money and inform people about the Tremco House. They saw that. They invited me to come to their meeting. They were really excited about it. They said, when, we would like to be a part of this. And that was in 2018. Of course, we know a lot has changed since then. So it was a real encouragement to me, and it was another voice in this. And I think what better outcome could we have for our town of Ashford than the whole town coming together to make this happen and have it be a community effort. And that's really my vision. I did attend the Our Town, Our Future meetings back in 2018. There was some discussion about that, getting new members and things like that. I did attend back then. I actually went to a meeting that Mr. Williams was facilitating. This was the historical committee, or the history committee, if I recall correctly. And I just couldn't really understand the parallel roads that the history committee and the Ashford Historical Society were on. To me, it seemed like we are a functioning historical society that has a wealth of knowledge and years of service to our town, and projects that they've been working on. And it seemed divisive to me to split that up and to start a new committee instead of really tapping into the resource that the Historical Society is. And I would rather strengthen one than go in a separate direction on a committee. And that's just me personally. I understand that people might feel differently about that. I think that, one of your committee members made the point last time that they felt more comfortable with the historical documents and things in the vault in the town hall for safety. Another perspective to consider is that when those things are in a vault, the school children can't see them, and their families can't see them, and people passing through our great town can't see them. And so there needs to be, in my opinion, a place for people to go see collections of what we have, even if it's on a rotating basis. The Historical Society needs the town's support. These towns around us that have these places to meet and they have places to show their historical documents have the town's support behind them. And that's why they are so successful and able to do so many things. They have a place to lay out their projects and leave it for a little bit and come back to it instead of having to pull everything out every time and return to it. I think that, as one of your members said, that they believed that the Trumco House has become an obsession. I look at it from a different perspective. I think that it's the Historical Society keeping the commitment of the grant that was written, that that building was going to be used for a town museum and tourist information center. And so if it has become an obsession, then I say rightly so, because we are, after all, the Historical Society, and our interest is in preserving Ashford history. And so that is what we should do, and that building is a great part of our history. I didn't know what the history was until I went and talked with Joan and met with the Historical Society. And I think that that is a building worth saving. In regard to the condition that's been brought up in different meetings, we have been back and forth and have jumped through all the hoops and all the red tape in terms of the condition of the building and its appropriateness for historical documents. Let me just say that all of these towns around us and towns across the nation have fixed up historical buildings and made them appropriate for storage, for collections to be showcased. I don't believe that I need to defend my work or defend the Historical Society, but I did want to just correct some of those things that were said. And so that is all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, your updates, and your clarifications. Much appreciated. Hey, you're on the line still. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I just agree with my president and vice president. We have worked very hard in the past to keep this thing going. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, and it's my opinion, that it's still going to be going and hopefully stronger than ever.
That's great. Thank you very much. I mean, maybe could you give us a clarification of where things are at with the town right now? I mean, I don't really know, quite frankly. I mean, I've heard discussion, secondary,
Mike?
that you guys had a grant that was moving forward with the town and put in another grant. I don't know.
No, Mike. This is Joan. Can I say something?
Absolutely.
That grant was applied when Mike Zambo was selectman, and we worked as co-sponsored with him and the town, and we allowed them to use our architectural drawings, which we paid for. There are architectural drawings, and they were needed as part of the grant, so the town didn't have to pay to have it done. We had it already done, and we allowed them to use them. So that grant, in the grant, it was stated again that this building was to be used as a museum and tourist information center. But right now, where it's at is in the capital expenditure budget. There was $5,000 put in there for town historical properties, and Mr. Hurd was hired via contract to provide estimated construction costs and phases to the Board of Selectmen, and they're just waiting for him to get back to them. It's almost ready. He's been ill, I guess. And there is a committee of 3 people that will be looking at this and acting as an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen. And on that board is Mike Gardner, Chuck Funk, and myself. So it's moving along through the Board of Selectmen. And there is, it's also on the list for projects that might be funded by the federal dollars that the town's is getting and going to be getting. So you can look at that also. It is on that list. So hopefully we can get funds that way. That would be a godsend, believe me. But again, we have been working with the Board of Selectmen for several years and several boards. So if you need any questions answered, please, anytime, I'd be more than welcome to come or talk to your committee.
Thank you very much. Well, I do apologize if there were any things that you guys may have felt offended by, and obviously we're struggling trying to find things to help facilitate. Our role really is to facilitate with anything.
Plan of development. Yeah.
I mean, we're really not there to do the job. I mean, I think you made the point, Joan, that way back when the first selectman kind of said, what do we want to do? What should we do with our ideas with the Tremco house? And we did, as you stated rightly, that we basically turned it back to them and said, really, that was their bailiwick, whatever. So, I mean, like I said, we were trying to find some things that we can do to help and make a positive thing. And I think all of you have done things and are doing things, obviously, that are positive to the community. And, I think if anything, we want to try to help in any way we can. So, certainly if there's things we can do that, we're more than willing to do that.
Yeah, Mike, let me jump in here a little bit because, frankly, the purpose of the Our Town, Our Future group is to serve as a vehicle to identify activities that we can support for other people to do. It's not our purpose to actually do things. It's not our purpose to go out and get grants or to do things for the Tremco house. And I was just trying to frantically try to find some of the minutes that we had from that last meeting, but I know what I would have said, and I'll say it again now. I do not think that is the place for the Our Town, Our Future group to take an active role in doing things for the Tremco house. I fully support Gina's activities, Kay's activities, Joan's activities, and what they want to do. But it's not our point to take the lead on doing anything on that. And at one point in time, the Board of Selectmen tried to put it on our plate, and I had taken the position at that point that wasn't for us to do. That's not our focus, and it's not the interest, I think, of what this group should be doing. We've had town meetings where we've formed focus groups to come up with ideas for things. And Gina, you referenced that. It was not to form a new group to do something, but it was to take and identify things that people felt strongly about, and then go off in separate groups to come up with recommendations of what might be done. I don't think anyone has ever proposed that there be a new group formed to do what was going on that was being done by the Historical Society. I fully endorse everything that the Historical Society has done, and I wish them well to do it. I just don't want the Our Town, Our Future group to be tasked with the execution of those items. That's not our place. It is not our thing to do. And I've stated that numerous times, and I'll continue to state it, and I'll vote against us doing that. But I really support—
We never asked you to do that, Dick. We never asked you to do that.
No, the Board of Selectmen—
Your last meeting was a total discussion mainly about the Ashford Historical Society, and no names were mentioned. That's not your platform. I don't want to argue. I said my piece.
John, I don't have everything that was said, as you have obviously gone back over and analyzed things. All I can do is state how I have felt now and in the past. What was said or not said by various people at that point, I can't quote it verbatim. It sounds like you and Gina have
I
done.
didn't analyze anything. It was minutes.
I don't
Yeah,
think
so,
there's much.
Rich,
Mike, I don't.
I think I mean, obviously we already had gone over that, I think back then, and Joan had stated herself that, we turned it back to the first selectman, and, it's kind of in there. They're the ones that execute the contracts, the funding, and it's like you said, we're really not the ones to go out and do that. We're really facilitators.
And Mike, we're more than willing, once we get a place where we can do our homework, we're more than willing to help with historical, like other towns, areas within the town, but that takes a lot of work. And it takes time, and we're willing to help with all that, but we can't do much until we can get back in and start getting these things rolling. So
Yeah.
I have no more to say. I guess I'm done.
Okay, Joan.
So this is
I'll say it one more
this
time.
is Margaret. Oh, can I pop in?
Go ahead, Margaret.
Go
ahead.
So thank you, Kay and Joan and Gina, for joining us tonight. And I think that there's no denying from our meetings, our group meetings, back when we could all get together live, that history, like arts and bicycle trails, like there were a number of things that our volunteers, our get-together, identified as being important to people and being wonderful qualities that we wanted to highlight. And clearly history and bringing history alive for our residents and our visitors and our school kids is really important. So I think aside from the Tremco House, and I'm glad to hear the update that it looks like we may be close to kind of knowing, okay, what has to happen next, what is the nut, what is the finance, the phases of it. But I do think that honoring our history is an important part of our present and our future. And I think as a group, we don't deny that at all. And I think we will just be eager to see what the report says that Mr. Hurd puts together and see where it goes from there.
Thank you, Margaret.
Members of the our Town of Future Committee.
Mike, I've said a lot of words, but I want to just summarize my feelings. I fully support the Historical Society taking the lead and going off, and whatever grant process they can gin up, whatever they can do to turn the Tremco House into the focal point for history in the town. I fully endorse that. I don't endorse the charge that was given to us some number of years ago for Our Town, Our Future to logistically take the lead on making that happen. We can support it. We can try to get people as on board with doing that, but it's not our position to take the lead in physically going after grants, doing physical things that would promote any project. We are the facilitators. We're not the doers. So, Joan, Kay, Gina, I respect everything that you're doing, and I encourage you as from a personal basis. I endorse everything you're doing, and I wish you every bit of luck to do that and get the resources to do that. And if we can help you identify resources that you can use, fine, but it's not the responsibility of Our Town, Our Future to physically do those things.
I think that's all.
Can I have a word? It's Gina.
Go
ahead. So it seems like this point keeps being brought up, but the Historical Society did not come up in the context of your meeting because we asked for any involvement from you. It came up because there was speculation at your meeting as to what was going on with us. And I would just encourage you to please reach out to us. I'm a teacher. My email is on the Ashford School website. I love to talk about this stuff with anybody who will listen. So really, it was a different context that it was brought up in. And while you may not remember the specific words or verbatim, when it's you that's being talked about, you do tend to remember those words. And so I just, once again, feel like it's an important point to make that this isn't a phone call, it's a recorded public meeting. And I just feel like that's getting lost in this.
Well, as far as updates, what happened to little columns in the Citizen? Like if you were interested in the community being informed of what's going on, because you used to publish in the Citizen, and there's been nothing.
Who is talking?
Who's it?
It's Maureen. I think that would be okay with COVID if you could just be transparent.
That's not your decision, Maureen. That's not your decision, ours.
No, of course it absolutely is not. It's a suggestion, though, and I think communication is really important. It's only, of course, you're absolutely right, but it is a suggestion that may have help. So yeah, of course,
we've
it's
already
up to
talked. We've talked about it. So.
Well, again,
sorry.
Sorry, didn't anybody go off there? Anybody else have something to say? Other than
This is Gina. I do. So, I think that people's priorities are in a really huge spectrum at this time. And a lot of people are just trying to survive at this time. And so these are decisions that are being made by our very active board of directors. And again, that's speculation, but suggestions can be made privately to us instead of speculating in a meeting. We're so happy to engage with anybody who would like to talk with us about what we're doing behind the scenes. That I guess it's just a courtesy that I'm asking. And I just feel like that point is getting lost here.
well, thank you, Gina. Your points are well taken.
Point received. Thank you.
And we appreciate your honesty, your willingness to spend some extra time that you probably didn't want to spend this evening with us and sharing their thoughts. It's a good grounding for us as well. And I think the bottom line is, truthfully, we all want to do good things to counter, try to do good things. And I think we can all try to reset and try to work towards that in a positive, proactive, communicative way. So I thank you for bringing all this information to our attention.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So if there's nothing else under that, I will move to project updates.
Thank you, Mike.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I just wanted to share with you is that I did have the opportunity to talk with our first selectman briefly here since our last meeting. And I did review some of the things that have been ongoing for a while regarding some of the road issues that had started with Catherine. We talked about the school zone speed limits, and there are some things ongoing with that to try to work towards working with the state DOT on establishing a proper school zone speed for the Ashford School. Also providing some more signage. As you may, if you're not aware, there are a couple of these speed radar signs that have been placed around town. They're on borrowed from UConn from their safety circuit rider program, and they're presently at Turnpike Road, Pittibrook, and on North Road, and they're basically going to be done collecting the data that they need to kind of get some information on maybe some things that could or could be done in those areas. But the first thing is to try to get some of what they call encroachment permits from the state, so they could relocate those to collect some data along 89 near the school. So again, to move towards a process to kind of improve some safety by some speed control and signage, and even a place in a school zone. Because there really right now isn't, the speed limit is 45, and I mentioned the last time that there's a state provision that you have to get it adopted to actually have a speed zone that could make the speed limit 10 miles an hour less than the existing speed. So you could maybe make it a 35 mile an hour speed zone with some additional signage and things. So that's something that's ongoing. It's a little bit out of what we had talked about, but it was somewhat connected because of the RSA that we'd done a few years back to talk about road safety issues, particularly around 74 and 44, but kind of spilled over to these other roads, and kind of stakeholders have been involved in it, meaningful to improving safety in roads in Ashford. I think the other thing we kind of talked about in general is also is about having another leadership meeting at some point when we can all gather like we kind of did right before COVID struck. And I think Bill is really in support of that. He obviously had done a few of those when he was first selectman many years ago. We felt those were meaningful to kind of cross-pollinate between various groups throughout the community, whether they're tied to the town or not, whether they're civic organizations or private, 501(c) groups. So that's something that's going to be out there. We'll talk more about it. We talked a little bit about the POCD update that is going to be coming up here in a couple of years, the 10-year review. We kind of did not get the 5-year done. So that's something that he was going to look to talk about later too, because obviously it involves planning and zoning as the lead on that, but the town, the board of selectmen be involved in some fashion as well. So that's something that'll be out there too to still talk about. But interesting enough, he some of the things that are on his radar, that really I think is somewhat what we've been talking about a little bit with some of the input too, is just about getting more people involved. There's really we've had a hard enough time before COVID, getting the more people involved in all the different various committees and things that help make the town go. It just isn't the employees at town hall. It's really the volunteers are a big part of what makes a community go and function and move in a positive direction. So he said that he was looking for trying to develop some ways that maybe we can continue to try to outreach. Obviously, what ends up happening is you have the same cast of characters of like us that are on multiple boards and commissions, and a lot of us aren't getting any younger. And so there's really trying to see where we can draw in to these different groups a younger crowd too, because I mean, truthfully, they see things through a different vision. I think Gina was talking about her 5th grade class and their view and vision of the community, and really that's where the future is going to be. I mean, maybe we should get some of your students involved in some of these groups, Gina. Maybe that's an outreach program at some point we could look to have, because maybe the kids can really ground us in the perspective of where we adults should be going. But I think that's one thing Bill really has kind of on the top of his agenda things maybe for our group to kind of see how we can facilitate getting things involved. I mean, the fire department is probably one of the bigger groups relative to its safety importance to the community that is doing okay, but there's always a worry about can you keep on feeding that need for volunteers, and along with all our other groups. I mean, so that's something for us to think about. I guess moving forward, and I'm going to try to reconnect with Bill later on. He had to run, but we're going to try to get together and have a little more substantial communication on some other things he may think are on the list. But I think certainly gathering at some point in the future, community, a cross section of our community stakeholders would be important to kind of begin to roadmap some things that are important, and whether it's things like we talked about, you guys had talked about earlier about the history and what the historical society is doing. I think those are all things that are relative and important to the conversation moving forward. So that's kind of where basically that part of things are at with kind of project updates and kind of some, at least some perspective on some initiatives moving forward from the Selectman's office at this point. Any thoughts on that?
Mike, I have a clarifying question. So the selectmen, to your knowledge, don't have with planning and zoning, don't have a clear plan or schedule for the POCD, looking at it and updating it. That hasn't been spelled out yet.
No, and I didn't really get to talk to them in depth about that, and it's really, again, not our purview, per se. We've kind of facilitated, and a number of us ended up getting involved from our mission perspectives the last time, but I think it really is planning and zoning's perspective, and it's due to be done technically by 2014 sometime, to be published for 2024 to be published by 2025. God, time flies. Oof. That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think there was a song like that way back when, in the year 2525 or whatever, 2025.
To clarify
but anyhow,
that, yeah.
But I think
this is,
go ahead,
Mike, this is a little bit for Gina's education, not the right word I want to use, but edification maybe is a better one. Our town, our future is not responsible for the plan of conservation and development. By state statute, it is the responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that commission has so far not done anything formally to put anything together to establish a committee to update to plan of conservation development. They've talked about it, well, probably 3, 4, 5 months ago, but it's not been on any agenda in recent times. The Alternative Future in the facilitative role has tried to bring that up and has offered to host a meeting of town commissions and boards and other people in the community to get their input for what might be some of the items that were listed on the plan of conservation development, specifically the action items that were at the end of that document. But that has not happened yet, and I think that's later on the agenda that Mike has got to talk about. But we're simply the facilitator in this one, not the doers. Although 3, 4 years ago, I was the chairman of the committee to update it. Mike was part of that, and several other people from the Economic Development Commission were also active in that. And we reached out to various organizations, including the Lake Chaffee and Ashford Lakes Associations, the Historical Society, and other groups, the Agricultural Commission, the Conservation Commission, for their inputs to the plan of conservation and development. But I don't think, speaking personally on that, I'm not prepared to step up to that role again this next time around. And we'll be trying to encourage planning and zoning to support going forward with that. It's an important document. It's the only place where anything is laid out about what the town should be doing going forward for the future. So it's something that's not supposedly to be looked at every 5 years. It's supposed to be looked at least on a yearly basis as far as updating it. And that hasn't happened so far.
And again, I think, kind of laying out what we're really trying to do is, from a facilitation perspective, is we know that this is something that's going to be done, and we're trying to get it done, head start on it. The last time we ended up actually having to get a reprieve from the state to kind of hand it in late rather. So I think you can't start these things too early because you really need to get some volunteers to step up to be on the committee. And that's really why we're trying to engage this conversation now, so that we can kind of get people lined up. And then, because it is a massive outreach program, because you really, really do want to get everybody's involvement and input into the document. And because it is kind of the strategic plan for the community. It does have a lot of really good ideas and things that you want to put on the radar and show that they're important for the community. And it ties into, truthfully, a lot of other things. If you're going for grants, like, you're looking for any type of grant from the state or feds, if you tie it back to your plan of conservation development, it kind of gives you the bonus points. And sometimes you can't even get some grants if you don't have those things really kind of established and identified. So
yeah, Mike, that's a good point to make, is that if
an important document.
If the plan of conservation and development is not submitted on time, and we did get a reprieve on that, basically it shuts off all grants for all items for the town of Ashford. So it's the state uses the the hammer on this, and if you don't do it, you're basically shut out from applying for any grants for anything.
Yeah, so so again, we're just trying to, I know we all get into the thing of, the homework. I'm sure hopefully all your kids do their homework on time, but I know there's a lot of us that are procrastinators. And everything takes twice as long as you think it does nowadays, it seems. So I think all we're trying to do is get this thing started, because 2024 will be here before we know it. And it's hard to believe it's 2022. So when did that happen? So that's really part of our role is to kind of prod things, poke things, move things along, and kind of hopefully help those things facilitate and keep moving. So that's kind of where we're at. Like, so we still have to kind of, catch up with Jeff and then regroup with Bill to kind of see if we can get that kind of moving, because it probably won't be until, I'm guessing, the third quarter of this year at the earliest that we should probably get some kind of group going to kind of even start thinking about it. So it's not
it
easy to do.
It has not been on the agenda for any of the planning and zoning committees activities for at least 3-4 months or longer.
Wow.
So anything else on those items? As far as, again, getting back to 2022 initiatives, I know that one thing that Margaret, you had talked to about, and it's something that I did talk very briefly with Bill about, was the community gardens that's kind of been out on the Ashford community page. So that is something I think that is beginning to pick up on the radar, at least the first selectman's office, matter of what somebody can do. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
No, it was an interesting conversation to watch, because someone had moved to town and actually was posting the question, does someone have some land that they would let me grow a garden on, because I'm living in an apartment or someplace that doesn't have a suitable garden space. So that was kind of what got floated out. But the conversation really went along like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a place within our community where we could offer up community gardens, and people who wanted to have a garden could have one. And it was one of those little sparks that reminded me of when we would have our town, our future sessions, where we were floating to people, what's important to you? What would you like to see? What do you envision 5 or 10 years from now in our community that we don't have today? And it kind of, just went like topsy all of a sudden, right? It just went nuts. So it seemed like maybe there's some interest there. Maybe and I think this is what we need to do. And I think that in preparation for the plan of conservation and development, it's not a bad thing. It's what are those threads of interest that people have? What's being talked about at the PTO meeting, at the sidelines of the basketball game? Like, what are those things that are important to our young families, to our seniors? Like, what are those things that people are saying, gosh, I sure wish we could blah, blah, blah. And that's what the Our Town, Our Future needs to be, pulling in those threads. And just like we did with the Arts Council and painting the old gas station, like, here's a problem, how can we solve it? But not us, Our Town, Our Future solve it. How can our community solve it? How can we pull those people together? So I don't know if anyone beyond this community garden thread has heard of other things that are sort of heightened in interest for people, that we should be trying to facilitate conversation about.
Yeah, Margaret, there's one item that did come up. I've seen it referenced in the Ashford community Facebook page. There's been a desire, and I know Bill has been interested in this too, to have a dog park someplace on town property. And there is places to do this. There's quite a bit of acreage at the Ashford Park. Enough acreage to do both of these items there. That's probably one of the largest open areas that the town has. But really what's required is to find the people that are interested in doing this and solicit them to kind of become a ad hoc committee that we would support and then promote to the selectmen to come up with recommendations on what should be done.
Yep.
And I think so the person that posted that on the Community Connections Facebook thing would be a good person to contact as a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a matter of putting it out. Is this something that you're interested in? Here's a way to hook in, private message this person, and then if you get 5 or 6 people, then they can coordinate a go-to-meeting or a Zoom call and just begin to talk about it. But we could kind of do it under the umbrella of Our Town, Our Future.
And that would give them the support that they have an idea and we want to help them develop that. They're not on their own. So I think that would be very encouraging.
Yeah, and just as an aside, we got to get over this darn Zoom and go to meeting stuff. The Warrenville post office is open to be used. There, you can have a physical meeting there. You can't have a hybrid meeting there. And I'm told that in the not distant future that the big conference room in the basement of the town hall is going to be set up so they can do hybrid meetings. It would be a lot better to get people together so they can, look at each other in the face to do these kinds of things.
Yeah, because part of what we're doing is connecting neighbors to neighbors who might not know each other. I mean, I think that was part of the magic of what we were able to make happen early on. We brought in a wide variety of types of people, and they met people with the similar ideas and interests, and forged relationships that way. So that would be a benefit if we could do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess that's what we all need to be on the lookout for, is what are those things? I mean, Gina, you may hear them from parents, or you may know, there may be some things. I don't know if they're planning to do an egg hunt this year in April, as the Ashford Easter Bunny, if that's happening, but that's always a great place to talk to young families, to kind of survey what are the things that you're interested in. And that's another thing we could do, is Our Town, Our Future could do some sort of a survey monkey and float a bunch of different ideas, take the temperature on some things, and do that through the citizen and perhaps through, email backpack stuff at school. And, there may be a variety of ways to get a sense of what are some of your interests, because I think this input is important leading into the POCD. I think we need to take the temperature of what are people interested in, and that's good input to the POCD. But on a casual basis, I think people are daunted to say, hey, you want to be on this committee that you're going to be living with twice a week for the next 2 years to put this document together. There aren't a lot of people jumping out of their skin to volunteer. But to say, hey, can you give us a half an hour and tell us what you think, or tell us what's on your mind or what you'd like to see, that is a little less intimidating and a lot less of a commitment, but it's valuable nonetheless. So.
Go ahead. Sorry, Gina, go ahead.
I don't know. Can I speak? I just had an
Oh,
idea.
sure.
I'm not a member of your committee, so I don't want to interfere. I'm just listening. But I think Margaret makes a really good point. I think the biggest vibe that I'm getting from families at the school is that everybody who's a working parent, even at-home parents, are tasked with doing more at their jobs than they've ever done before. And so to pile on a volunteer thing at this particular juncture is really challenging for people. So I like what she's saying in the vein that she's going in that, the kind of like half an hour meetup thing, or, to be creative about that, I think is such a good idea.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that subject?
I guess, Mike, you might want to come up with an action item. I mean, should someone reach out to the person that's asked this question?
Well, I know that on the community garden one, that I know Bill seems to have that on his radar, but I mean, maybe I can circle back with him on that one and see if there's something they're doing. I know a lot of other towns like work it through the recreation department, or there's opportunity, let's put it this way, for the recreation department, and I know where I work, they actually ran it as a program. They ended up charging a fee or something, but that paid for the water and tilling of the garden every spring and that type of thing, setting out the plots and things. But I mean, so there's some opportunity there. So I don't know.
Yeah, my comment was, there is one or more people, someone put the post on the Facebook page for Ashford Community, reaching out to that person and some of the people that responded to that to open the door that they may want to participate in something.
Does everybody feel that's appropriate?
Well, it's that our goal is to get more people involved, and I'm not going to volunteer for that. I've got my plate more than full with doctors and surgery and all sorts of other stuff here.
Well, then would somebody like to volunteer for that? Do that then. Circle back with, I guess, are you talking about the community garden folks and the dog park people?
I could try to track down that community garden conversation. I can't remember where it was exactly, but I can look for it.
Yep.
Margaret, it was on the Ashford Community Connections Facebook page or whatever.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not sure the exact wording of that, but it is.
Yeah.
It's the one that's got everyone that's putting 2 cents worth out all the time.
Yep.
Okay. How about any other items? So this is a collective group. If there's anything else people see on the come across either via that channel or another channel, whether you're getting coffee or going to the transfer station to hear something or talk to somebody, we'll do the same thing. Kind of low key at this point.
Someone was telling me that what did they do to the transfer station? They moved all of the community interaction places, the book place and the swap place down in the mud at the bottom. So I don't go much to the transfer station anymore, so I'm not even sure what's down there. But that was an item that I saw a number of people commented about.
Well, this kind of conversation does segue into one of the things we had on our agenda, 5A, new member recruitment. So, I mean, again, if that's an opportunity to kind of talk to some people and see maybe if they want to get more involved, and even on a committee type thing. But I know to Gina's point, I think we're all feeling the, I don't know what you call it, COVID fatigue or whatever it is, but it's real. We know that.
Yeah, Mike, I'd like to offer reach out to Gina. You've managed to sit through all of this stuff, had a lot of good comments. It doesn't involve a whole lot more other than the monthly meetings and occasional, tasks to set up other items. But we would probably benefit very much from the set of connections that you have that are very different from those that the rest of us have. So I'd like to, reach out to see if we can recruit you to be a member of this group.
Well, thanks for your consideration. I will think it over. Let me just say that I am definitely guilty of overcommitting myself. So, but I really do enjoy being a part of the discussion and the idea generating. So thank you for that.
I would ask if there's anybody that you know or their travels, or Joan and Kay as well, if you know of anybody who'd like to be involved. Obviously, we're trying to get more ideas. I mean, a bunch of us have been at this, so I don't want to say we're getting stale at it, but there is a tendency to kind of get stale. So, I mean, new blood, new ideas, younger people. There's truth to having diversity on a committee as well. So I mean, that's how synergy.
Yeah, we're missing two people tonight. Ray Fenn's not with us tonight, and Gwen's not here, but we definitely could use a few more folk. We had Deb Gagg involved early on, and she kind of spun off to be this, Arts Council. And probably one of the better things that we've done that's really, taken hold has been the Ashford Arts Council. It's extremely active, and it's pretty much developed a life of its own. So that's, if you were to take a model of what we'd like to accomplish, I'd say that's probably a good template.
In terms of demographics with the real estate market, are there a lot of new people in Ashford, or are people just moving from one house to another? I'm just wondering if, so there's been so many sales. I've had a couple of neighbors that are not from around here. So you get somebody who's interested in their new home and wants to get involved. So I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things.
Well, it requires knocking on doors and really introducing yourself and inviting people. It's the old-fashioned way. It's kind of like door-to-door recruiting, and I do think that there's a whole population of folks here who don't feel that they're worthy of contributing. Like, oh, I'm just a 26-year-old. What do I know? Like, what can the town do? What my skills could the town use? Right? I think they're intimidated about the idea of becoming involved. So I think it's going to be a lot of old-fashioned, pick up the phone or talk to somebody at church or catch them in the schoolyard and recruit them and say, we could really use your input. So I have a young man who works with me. I work for the town of Mansfield, is my day job. And there's a young man who also just moved back to Ashford from California, who works in one of the departments, and he's very interested in joining on and listening to what we have to say and in becoming, because he's new to town and he's interested in, growing in it, but it was his hometown, he grew up here. So I think that we just have to be a little bit creative in our thinking and a little bit, invite people personally. It's the only way we're going to get people to get involved. So, and I think that there's a lot of people in their 20s and 30s. They might not have a lot of time, but sometimes you just have to ask.
Yeah, one of the places I don't have a personal promotion for the Ashford, Community Connection Facebook, but it definitely gets a lot of newer people to town. People actually go on there and they will say, I'm new to town. Can people suggest where I get my dog, groomed, or can suggest where I get plowing done or this, but people go on there and reach out looking for things. So I would think the administrators would probably not be adverse to us putting a post on there that would simply say we're looking for people that might be interested in, working on this committee. We did something like that on the Our Town, Our Future Facebook page several years back, and I think we ended up with at least a half a dozen people expressed an interest. I also did it on one of the political Facebook pages, looking for candidates the last election. And I ended up getting 8 people that came out of the woodwork that were interested in exploring possible, candidate positions for the election. So it's not a bad way to reach people.
A couple options there. Thank you. Any other thoughts? I have, let's see, I do have one other comment about our meeting dates. This is something Bill indicated he'd love to obviously attend some of our meetings, but obviously they're on the same date as the Board of Selectmen's meeting. We had changed this back, a while back, just for accommodation for some of our members, but I don't know whether anybody would feel that at least maybe having a special meeting on next month, maybe, so that our first selectman could attend. What do you think? Change it from a Monday to a Tuesday?
That's great.
What do you think?
He's interested in working with us. That's great, yeah.
So maybe that's what I'll do is maybe our next meeting for March, I'll try to make it on a Tuesday like we did, maybe the second Tuesday of the month like we used to. Is that a problem for anybody?
That's a bad night for me,
Oh,
Mike.
Tuesday? Okay.
The second Tuesday, but
just
any other Tuesday works. Just the second one, yep.
Okay, so we'll like to do it not the second Tuesday. Okay. Any other input from members or public? Anyone still on? Anybody still awake and still with us?
I think.
I know I'm sorry to fade.
I think all of our guests are gone, other than Gina. So Kay and Jonah are not on any longer.
Okay, so any other thoughts, anybody? Maybe
I think we all need to commit to send Mike the email for 3 new people before the next meeting.
Wow.
So that we could add 3, each of us add 3 new people to be invited to the next session.
Wow. There'll be a prize for whoever gets the most. Okay,
you go first.
So that try to see if we can reach out to some additional people. I know I did try to reach out to some people, but hasn't worked out yet. Keep trying. And maybe we could.
And then I guess, do we try to target a date for our leadership meeting and try to do an in-person, like if we want to do it in April, do we kind of do a save the date and try to get that in motion?
Yeah, I want to circle back with Bill on that. I mean, I think he certainly is supportive and very interested. I think it's a matter of the logistics. Again, this darn COVID thing. I mean, if we're going to do something, certainly I think may end up being a hybrid meeting because I think Zoom offers some positive things that people just don't have to travel and whatever. But on the other hand, I'd like to just circle back with Bill in the next week or two and see what he would think. But I definitely,
okay.
I think we're looking to do something in the next, few months at least, maybe. But really,
Mike,
drive that bus a little bit.
The senior center is open with some restrictions, and that's where we had the last meeting. And Knowlton Hall is also open with some restrictions. So.
Yeah, but just remember, Dick. I mean, we're governed. If this meeting is under the auspices of the first selectman's office, they have to follow state statute relative to the FOI meeting, recordings and all that other stuff. So that it's got to be done to that level of standard of care, so to speak. So
Yeah, I think if it's done totally in person, then you don't have the FOI issues. As long as it's a venue that's open to anyone that wants to come, you don't have to have the hybrid meeting. You don't have to have the Zoom thing. So at least that's my understanding for that memo that was put out 6 months ago when everyone was asking, I think Catherine was asking what people wanted to do. And, there were three options. One was all Zoom, one was hybrid, and one was in person. And all of them, I think, met the FOI requirements as long as they were announced in advance.
yeah, but hard for us to predict with the way this thing's been going too. I mean, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but it's just you just kind of have to kind of go with what's happening and plan for contingencies. So I think one of the things I've learned, I think that's been an advantage learning from this whole situation has been that these Zooms do offer access to these meetings that many other people might not take advantage of, like having to drive their car or mobility issues and not wanting to be in a crowd. And so I think that's something from my perspective that at least would maybe add, even if it add 2 or 3 more people that were able to attend a meeting like that, that'd be a good thing. So, but I think I got to circle back with Bill because he's going to be the one that's going to really be the leader in this thing, and then we'll certainly have our marching orders relative to what we can do to help facilitate that and get the word out and what have you. So, like we've done before, and I think we've had a lot of success getting people out from all the different groups. So I think that's something to me, that'll be a happy day because I think that's something to look forward to because I think it's going to be a positive event. So, but I think I'll circle back with Bill and see if we can kind of target a time frame here, sunnier days, so to speak. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you, everybody, for spending your evening.
Everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate
Bye.
it. Thank you,
Gina,
everybody.
good to see you in not in person, but in place. Last time we spoke was at that barn that you used to work at. I'm trying to think what the name of the place was. Caprlands.
Oh,
Some years back.
oh my.
There was
Well,
an event that you attended, that I attended, that we were all up there in that in the general area. That was the first time I met you, and I guess you used to even work there once.
I think you may be thinking of the Golden Land Buttery.
Yeah, the golden. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Yes, I did work there for a number of years. I remember now the event you're talking about. Boy, you have a good memory.
Yeah. But at any rate, it's good to see you again.
Okay, thank you everybody for your time. Good night.
Bye.